Hi, Jeralyn. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Krista. What a joy.
Yes, it's a great honor for you to be here today. You are a very busy and prolific woman, so I'm excited to talk to you about your life journey and your story and all your work. It is so fascinating and interesting. The first question is I always kick it back to my guest and let them do just like a very quick introduction of who they are and what they do.
So I'm Professor Jeralyn Glass, and I knew since I was a little girl that I was going to have a life in music. And I just remember a very distinct moment of twirling around on our front porch and singing and dancing and just feeling, wow, this great connection to what I understood then to be God, something much bigger than me that was so kind and loving and said to me, this will be your life's path. And so indeed, that is what happened. I went to New York and got a Broadway show when I was 19. And then I moved into classical music in my 20s and lived in Europe for many years. And then I became acquainted with the crystal singing bowls that you see behind me and have just delved into this world and began to pioneer a number of things using the singing bowls. So music has always been my passion, my life. And I somehow understood really as a child that music was something that could help ground us, could help open us, could help free us, and could be really a transformative modality in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were going to unpack that in the interview. I have some very interesting questions for you about that life journey.
Okay.
My second question is always, since this is this podcast focuses on the cross section of spirituality, healing, and personal development, I'm always interested in people's early childhood experience with religion or spirituality or nothing at all, and then how they found them connected to whatever it is that they're interested in as an adult. So what was that story like growing up? What were you plunked into, and then where did you land as an adult?
It's such an interesting question. I really, I feel that God was always a part of my life again from childhood. I knew and felt a presence that was bigger than myself and that was very, very loving. And I think I always had a connection with some kind of communication that was very direct with me. And so I think when I would listen or hear that voice, that guidance, I always felt safe and comforted. And so I think that gave me the ability in my life to I later had a motto that said, jump and the net will appear. I had an ability, I think, in my life to really trust in situations where, at age 19, I packed my suitcase and didn't know anyone really and moved to New York because I had a dream and a vision of what I wanted to do and be on Broadway. So, and I do remember a very distinct moment sitting in church. I actually started to go to church with a neighbor, and it was more just for this sense of profundity, I think, and this sense of communion and communication in a bigger manner with others. And I remember sitting in the church at about age 16, thinking about my future and did I want to go to college and what did I really want to study and how would that look? And I remember thinking, I think I'm going to be a nun. I think that would be the best thing would be to devote my life to service of God, right? And humanity. And as I sat in the church, I remember then hearing that little voice that said, no, you're going to serve God through music, right? And so, I mean, I can laugh now, but I do remember that as a very distinct moment as a young person, like, okay, Jeralyn, I don't think the nunnery is the right path for you. You are really going to serve through music.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, and I think probably at the time that was kind of like where a lot of women would go. I know like growing up in my religious experience that was like a very obvious place. If you had a deep connection to God, it would be like you would go to the monastery if that's what you wanted to do. And I think I love that our whole entire paradigm is shifting and there's so much more openness and way and clarity to connect to the divine and really lean into your gifts like you have. I was really interested before we get into your book. You didn't mention Broadway, but for the people that don't know you or meeting you here for the first time, you were an opera singer. And I was curious about when you were working with sound bowls for the first time, did you feel like your voice changed in working with them? Or like how did it affect your own vibration of singing? I was really curious about that.
That's also such a good question, Krista. So again, I think as a young singer, like I remember definitely moments like in Broadway, of course, I you were mic'd, the whole show was mic'd.
Sure.
But in the world of classical music, you are not mic'd unless there were a number of times that I did big outdoor amphitheaters and then you were mic'd, right? But
Hmm.
I think that I remember moments standing on a huge stage, no amplification, needing to project my voice over 100-piece orchestra sometimes in a 2 to 3 to 4,000 seat auditorium or theater, and
Wow.
recognizing, oh, I'm the instrument. I am this crystalline instrument, and I am, I can tell you now, that we are made of quartz-like structures in our blood and in our bones. And so we vibrate. And especially as a classical singer, it's your two little vocal cords and your whole being, your whole body. So what is it that amplifies that sound? And, obviously you have to train like you become a vocal athlete. But as I
Hmm.
started using the bowls, I recognized in time that we were in this incredible collaboration, so that when I would play a bowl and work my voice, they would entrain together, meaning that they would come together and resonate in harmony. And then there was something bigger
Wow.
that would come out of my voice. So in the book, I do tell a story about a jump in the Munich Philharmonic Hall, and how I warmed up for that, and how I used the set of 7 bowls that I had at the time to really land inside myself, to trust this human instrument that each of us are, and then to allow it in a very high pressured situation with no real rehearsal, to land and sing probably one of the most beautiful concert experiences of my whole career.
Mm. Yeah. Was it televised by chance?
No, we have a video of it, and
Okay.
we do. I mean, no, it wasn't. It was a New Year's
Okay.
Eve concert, but that is actually included in the book, is something about, and the chapter 1 starts with that experience, because it was so pivotal in my life, what that meant to totally trust this human instrument, totally trust this
Hmm.
essence. If you want to go back to God, as you asked, totally trust this essence of the divine within each of us. Trust that it's good enough, as my singing teacher used to say, Jeralyn, take the question mark off your back. And it's like, what are you talking about? How do you know I have a question mark there? And, understanding as a young singer that you can hear that. You can hear
Mm.
a kind of watching and guarding and listening, like, am I okay? Will you like me? Will it be acceptable? Am I good enough? All those things that our mind will chatter about. But it was like, wow, you land, you're present, and you just express your authentic gifts, your authentic
Mhm.
personal vibrational signature. So the bowls really they're a friend. They're a vibrational friend. Do you sing?
No, I don't. But what I was going to say is when I first came into contact on my spiritual journey with the idea of meditation and starting with the meditation Om and then doing that for the first time with sound bowls, I remember it was very much akin to in my religious experience growing up, hearing somebody sing the Ave Maria.
Mm.
Like I would just like everything moved like you just described, everything inside, like every single cell, like I can almost feel it now just thinking about it. Every single cell in my body started to vibrate and respond and to sort of soften to this musical interaction that I feel is indescribable. Like there are no words for it when we come into contact with music and sound in this way, and it's just so beautiful. And I wish I could sing, but no, I'd probably make everybody's ears bleed right now.
It's funny that you mentioned Ave Maria, because I've sung that throughout my career, and it was one of the first things that I actually sang with bowls. Um,
Really?
yeah, a number of times, and I'll send you something so you can listen. But
Yeah, please do. I'll just be crying. It
I
just always makes me cry.
there's 2 versions. There's the Bach Gounod version, and then there's the Schubert version, and both are
Mm-hmm.
incredibly beautiful. But I sang the Schubert version at a big event for Marianne Williamson, I think in 2017, and it's
Yeah.
just, oh my gosh, like, I've sung it all over. And the Ave Maria is
Oh.
something, like, even sometimes I'll put it in a sound bath, and people will be crying and say to me afterwards, my grandma was here with me. She always, we played that
Oh.
music together. Like, people will have big responses, because I think that, as we talk about, like, there's certain melodies that, what you just said, they take you beyond the thinking mind. They take you in that place, I always say, of the ineffable. Music takes us to the
Yes.
place of the sublime where there's no words and you're having a spiritual experience. Now, when you add a famous melody like the Ave Maria or just a song that one loves, something else gets activated in the body also, which is, I'll
Mm-hmm.
jump ahead for a minute, but which is why in the field now, the blossoming field of music medicine, it's very important that the person, let's say you're going to have an operation and you get to choose the medicine, the medicine for yourself. It's the music you love, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not that the doctor says, okay, let's listen to Vivaldi because that's Baroque music and that should be very, relaxing, etc. for you. No, if you love, Pharrell's Happy, then they're going to play that, right? And it's important that we recognize what are the sounds, what are the vibrations that excite us, because it's not a one size fits all. Music is very, very, very individual.
Yeah, well, and I mean, yes, I agree with all of that, and we can most certainly jump around in this interview. That's no problem because I did have a question about that because you do a lot of music medicine, and I just thought that maybe you could tell us too about when we think about sound healing and in medicine or music in medicine, it seems to be becoming more and more prevalent and supplementary to the healing process, to the actual procedures themselves. And I wondered if you could tell us from the spiritual side and the scientific side, the medicine side, however you want to take this question, like what are the outcomes we're seeing when we work with music and sound healing in medicine in these ways? I know it's very profound.
It is, I mean, Krista, it's incredible. I mean, me, myself, I experienced my grief. So I lost my son 9 years ago, my 19-year-old son, and there was no pill that could help me. There was no religion that could help me. There was, as much as I connected with God and like that, how do we as human beings, when we have pain like that and we have devastation like that, what the heck can we do? What is the balm? So whether not the balm,
Right.
the balm with a BALM,
Yeah.
could be what's the balm too, but
The
it's sort of
will
like,
be on. We'll catch it.
it's like, how can we take the responsibility for our own healing in our hands? And I mean, this is a very big question, what you asked. Um, I work with cancer patients. I work with veterans. I work with, I've worked with Alzheimer's and dementia and Parkinson's, children with anxiety. We've worked with autism. I mean, everything. If you think about that, music it's such an essential part of all our lives, no matter what culture we come from. Everybody uses music to celebrate a wedding, a baptism, a birth, a death. Like music is what accompanies us through our joyous and our sorrowful times in our lives. So um, so there's just so much to say. Music is being used with Parkinson's. In that case, it's being used with rhythmical things and having the patients move to sound. So sound and movement together is incredible. What I would say in general is that what I've discovered and what I discovered for myself as I started to really land in my grief and feel it was music held a safe container where I didn't need to run away because it was so scary how big the emotions were.
Yeah.
Music created a container, especially for me using the bowls, that my mind, boom, the volume turned down. My mind was still because your mind goes, oh, wow, that's music. That's beautiful. And in that moment, your mind is still and you're able to drop down into the truth of who you are. And, we can say you drop into your soul where there's a much bigger picture of your life, who you are, why you're here at this time. And I think that for me, the music as medicine really helped me to not be a victim of my circumstance, right? Because I could have laid in grief for the rest of my life. And there are moments for sure still the other day, I just was like, as so many wonderful things are happening, it's like, Sonny, why can't you be here with me? And then it's, right away, it's like, Mom, I'm here. Like, I am here.
Hmm.
No, I mean, like, why can't I give you a big fat hug and why can't you be here with me? And it's like, music gives us the capacity to understand that we're made of energy and that energy gets compressed into human form, and we're body, mind, spirit. We're light. We're the divine in this human body. And I think many of us don't really recognize it. It's what you were talking about earlier, when you have these sublime connections to music and you feel how
Mm-hmm.
boundless you are. It's that. And I think when we have those experiences, we're not tied to the pains of this human body. And we have the ability to breathe and feel, release and heal. And I've seen it again and again and again, no matter what someone is really suffering with. And
Mm-hmm.
one more thing to that, the bigger picture is like, when I was a little girl, I remember reading the newspaper, and I would read the obituaries, Krista. And I remember asking my mom, like at age 8,
Oh my
Mom,
goodness.
how could a whole family die in a car crash? Like, why would God do that? Why would that happen? 4 children and parents, like I couldn't grapple it, right? And she'd say, dear, you have to trust when your time is up, it's up. There's nothing to be afraid of. When your time is up, it's up. And that sort of really stayed with me as a young child, to just recognize there is a bigger picture for each of our lives. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe we can't heal something. Maybe we can't, let me say it a different way. Maybe we can't get rid of the disease of cancer, but we can heal in a way that our whole being is accepting that and sees this bigger picture. So each of us has our own divine plan and purpose. And sound helped me so much to get beyond feeling that I was a victim to the circumstances of my life. And then I get to share that with so many people all around the world, that we get empowered, that we know we're the
Yes.
creator of our lives.
Yeah. Yes, I did read that in your bio, and thank you for being candid about that experience, and definitely sending you lots of support right now. I've lost lots of family members in my family as well. And that grief, you're right. You could sit in your grief forever for sure. Like that's definitely an option. I also think it's so interesting that like we constantly forget that that we're like a spirit in this human body. I know I do all the time. And I think with the sound healing, it's interesting to me that like we are a physical container to like everything we're experiencing. So like even trauma work, not just medical disease, but like there's all this stuff living inside of us that we're containing within ourselves. And to me, it's interesting to think about the idea of the sound healing acting as a conduit to help us remove and release trauma, disease, pain, grief. Like, what a wild, wild modality that we have found that's super ancient. And I don't know if you want to say anything else about that.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's so fun to have a conversation with you, because you really understand. Think about the ancient cultures. Like, think about what we hear about shamans or medicine men that, medicine women that shook their rattles and danced, and were
Yes.
helping to remove the evil spirits. And think about ancient mantra from India, or just all cultures, even in the Chinese
Mm-hmm.
medicine from over 2,500 years ago. The character in their language for healing, for health and medicine and happiness is the same as music. It's like the
Yes.
ancient cultures understood that sound and movement could help us to release patterns of energy, emotions that we were holding. And these can be the core of what causes illness.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fascinating, because after my son died, I was offered by 3 different doctors to go on antidepressants. And it was like, why? I get the need for it in certain situations, but it's not going to bring my boy back. So if I
Yeah.
can't, I knew that if I couldn't sit in it and breathe it and feel it, I would never be able to move through it and heal it. Like, there's a thing in our culture, I think, about let's just numb it out. And if you go back to the
A
ancient
thousand
cultures,
percent.
right? And the ancient cultures is like, well, let's dance it and tone it and stomp it out. Let's move the energy. I think they
Mm-hmm.
understood more that illness or blockages, they're just stuck energy. And they get stuck in different places of our body. Let's say they're stuck in the lower abdomen. And I think the interesting thing about the sound and working with the crystal bowls is, you know, you might say it's really important to understand it's not one to one. So you might say, okay, Jeralyn, I really have this heartbreak. And I'd like to use an F note because technically in the Western system, the F note is for the heart chakra. And it's like, no, because it's multi-layered. So your original wounding or your original blockage might be in your pelvis, right? But you're focusing on your heart that's broken, but actually the stuck energy is in your pelvis or it's in your low back.
Yeah.
Right? So this whole field, we really have to understand we're working with that, what you described from the very beginning so beautifully with the Ave Maria, or with the Om. Like you sit in this big, expansive space and it's going to move through you in ways that you need. And that's what I found with the bowls. Like as I started processing my grief, I felt the sound in all different areas of my body. I didn't understand what was
It's so
happening.
interesting.
Yeah. Does that make sense? And I hope it makes sense
Yeah,
to the
no, it's so
listeners.
interesting when you feel, when you literally feel it in places that you didn't even know you could feel inside yourself when you have that first experience.
So you think about, okay, the energy of my grief is actually stuck in my low back. Wow, there's a lot of pain in my low
Right.
back. Well, if I bring and imagine the sound in there, like for example, if I would just go, oh, and play a bowl or not play a bowl, just simply use my voice and direct it into the low back, you're going to find that blockages in your body move. And then as they move, your energy becomes more and more free and you begin to heal. It's ancient. It's the question you asked me. It's every culture understood on some level that. So we're energy.
Yeah.
And our energy gets blocked. And then we have to do things to free it and feel it and move it and come back into alignment. That's why music is so beautiful, because music is harmonious. We need to bring harmony.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for answering those questions. I did want to spend just a little bit of time. I know your book is not out yet, but I did want to just talk about this book that you have coming out called Sacred Vibrations, the Transformative Power of Crystalline Sound and Music, which will be out July 23rd. So maybe we can tell the listening and watching audience what this book is about, what's its intention, and like if someone's picking it up, what would they be finding in these pages?
Oh gosh, I recognized it really as a lifetime of information and work that went into the book. Excuse me. And so I would say there's really three threads that run through it. It's what we're talking about is how can we use music and intentional sound vibration to transform our lives, right? How can music be that medicine that helps us really to shift things that maybe we thought were unchangeable? And so the three threads that run through the book are basically my life in music. So it begins with this situation where I had to jump into a concert at the big Munich Philharmonic Hall, and the leading soprano had gotten sick, and I was called to jump in. And what did that mean? And that became a pivotal moment in my life. So the thread throughout the book is a life immersed in music, a thorough understanding of this is the crystalline instrument. I know what it means to project my voice without any amplification. I know what it means to tune myself and vibrate and bring harmony. Because, like as a young singer, I'd always I had my ritual of my prayers that I would say, God, make me an instrument of your peace, an instrument of healing, an instrument of life and of light. And no matter what I was singing, whether it was Puccini or Mozart or Gershwin or Rodgers and Hammerstein, it didn't matter. It was like, let that essence of light flow through me. So there's that thread of all kinds of things around that. Like, for example, I lived and studied in Germany at the time when Germany was still divided. There was still an East and West Germany. And I lived in Berlin where it was divided into 4 sectors. And there's a story that happens in that time that was really life-changing for me also. And then there's the section about the bowls themselves. What are these crystalline instruments? They're only approximately 25 years old, and yet they've emerged now as really one of the leading sound healing tools that, as I said to you, like help to really quiet the mind, because they are this kind of music and help us drop into the body. So I talk about the history of them. I have guests throughout the book, leading scientists and researchers that share their wisdom too, their sound wisdom. And then we talk about the chakra system, the energetic system, all the different kinds of things that sound as a healing modality does. And then there's the thread of my son, and the thread of starting from the night that he died, he gave me a sign. There was a huge shooting star,
Mm.
which I live in Los Angeles, and you don't see shooting stars in the city. And he started the communication, Mom, it's like we always talked about, I'm home, I'm with God. And he was referring
Mm.
to our little prayers and meditations that we do when he was a child, 7 and 8 years old, with the singing bowls, right? So
Wow.
it's filled with those kind of things that I would just shake my head and just go, Jeralyn, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Like, this is, and my family would say to me, you're really blessed that you have this communication through sound vibration with your son, and he's not gone. Again, I would just love to be able to hug him. And this is him. He sits on my computer, and he guides
Aw.
me. He's with me through all the things that we're doing now. But so those three threads run throughout the book. And then included are also what we called sound prescriptions, or sound RX. So I
Hmm.
have students all over the world. And so, for example, some of their stories, such as working with prisoners, working with veterans, working with blind veterans, working with children with autism, working with cancer. So there's little stories in there about
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing in this field. And of course, it's all right now anecdotal. So, in other words, but we started, which is also in the book, we started a collaboration with the Minerva Institute, which is one of the most innovative universities in the world. It's been voted a few years in a row up in San Francisco. And we've started a laboratory of research, especially using the crystal bowls, because there's been no research done. And that's, I
Yeah.
can say to you, I know that I'm able to sit here and there's joy in my eyes once again, which I never thought I'd have. And I can share with you all these incredible, I'm going to call them miracles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's what's infused in the book. And then it ends with the last chapter talks about what is the future of this? Where are we going?
Yeah.
What are the possibilities for all humankind? And I think my desire was, we also made this card deck. So this was the first project that I did with Hay House. And what is really cool about this is that the card deck each of the cards has a QR code on it. So you can hear the sound. So you can hear the sound of your singing bowl. And this is like
Yeah.
an
That's so
oracle
cool.
or an angel deck. Yeah. And the thing that I felt then, and my son really guided, was, Mom, we got to get sound available in everyone's back pocket, because no matter where you are in the world, most people have some kind of a device, right? Some kind of phone.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so going further with the book, the idea was, how do I make this available to anyone, wherever you are in the world? And so starting, I think, like 7 years ago, my son guided me to create a YouTube channel, and we put, I think there's like almost 200 just free meditations and free sound baths and all kinds of stuff, because it was like, Mom, this has to be available to everyone. Sound is a
Mm.
medicine that needs to be available to every human being. And I think that was really my main goal, was to share the miraculous things that have happened for me, to share my knowledge and wisdom about music, and then to dive deeply in what are these crystal bowls, and they're definitely not woo woo, and how can you share about the science and many of the things that you're doing with them, so that people can really understand. It's a really modality that we will take more and more seriously as the years pass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and it's kind of, I actually work in clinical research in my day job, and so I'm very much in a data driven world in my day life. But it's always interesting to me too that, like, people always want the scientific research, even though we tangibly know it when we experience it. And in some ways, that can be a bit frustrating, because it's like we know to our core that this resonance is happening, that this change is occurring, that this amazing, like, ethereal shift is happening when you experience this.
Mhm.
But then we have to go and quantify it. But it's important that we do, because that lends to having it entered into, institutions and medical places and things that require, those qualifications. So it's not all bad, but it does kind of frustrate me sometimes.
Well, it's very important that we have science behind it, and to understand that there are truly things that take us in this realm of the ineffable that we can't
Yes,
explain. But that,
exactly.
as a classical musician, I think so. We have Dr. Daniel Levitin, who is the author of This Is Your Brain on Music, and he has a new book
Hmm.
called I Heard There Was a Secret Chord. But he's one of the leading neuroscientists, and he's in overseeing the lab at Minerva. So it is really important for me, coming from a world of excellence in music, that we also can have the research behind why does that
To
work?
support it.
Right. But it's going to take
Yeah,
time. So what I said earlier, like, does a C note always do this? What happens if I
right.
use the binaural beat? Like, what are these things? Someone just wrote me yesterday and asked, because I've mentioned that I've worked with tinnitus, and they were like, I'm a retired doctor and I'd like to be able to share with people, what did you do? So all I could really say to her is, in all three situations, I used the pentatonic scale. She knew exactly
Mm.
what that meant. She was like, okay, that's a great piece of information. But as you said, like, is it proven? Can we say, do
Right.
this, follow this prescription? Not yet.
Nice.
But one last thing, I got to present in Washington, D.C. in December for the National Institutes of Health, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Kennedy Center, and the Renee Fleming Foundation. And they had
Hmm.
never heard the bowls before. So it was leading medical doctors, scientists, and researchers. And I would say, people's minds were really blown. And one of the heads of the National Institute for Health, they wrote an article and singled out the presentation and the bowls as one of the highlights of the 2-day event, because
Mm.
it's really, we're all seeing that this is something that's going to be more and more and more powerful, that we can integrate more and more in our lives. But
Hmm.
as you just said, like, there's not yet any major research, and we're spearheading that. Yeah.
I wanted to give you some space to maybe do bowls, but I did have just one more question here. In terms of the healing work of sound bowls, I just kind of wanted to see if we could maybe tease out some more ideas about when people are working with sound healing, and it seems to that it does create really deep healing. Do you have a sense of why that is? I mean, even if people's intentions are not that, they are conveying that to people and to their experiences. Like, what do you know about it being able to literally heal us in varying different ways?
Yeah, great question. I'm laughing because, about the proving and everything.
Yeah.
I would say to my Mom, what has happened to me? I'm this classical musician, I'm a professor, and I'm playing these crystal singing bowls that are kind of, right? And I'm communicating with my son on the other side, like, what's happened to me? I've lost it. And she'd go, no, dear, you have to continue doing what you're doing because you're helping so many people. And so this is exactly the point that, we kind of go, okay, we're out there in this field that there's a lot of stuff that hasn't been proven, and yet we all know as human beings that music affects us on a very deep level. So,
Yes.
when you ask that question, I'm just thinking about, once again, I would say, like, when you when you hear the sound, your mind quiets. And you see, as my singing teacher used to say to me, Jeralyn, don't listen to yourself. Take that question mark off your back, because nothing's vibrating here. And it was like,
Yeah.
wait, I don't get it. What do you mean I don't get it. And it was like, your body is the thing that's projecting your sound, that's filling those 3,000 seat theaters. It's your body. Meaning that
Mm.
when we are safe in the arms of music, and you don't have to understand any of this, because I've had medical doctors in my studio that are like, what happened? And I'm thinking about, there's one story of, I played at a medical retreat center in Thailand for a number of years, and I remember one situation where, um, one of the attendees was a high executive at IBM in Africa, and after the sound bath, he said to me, Geraldine, what kind of voodoo did you do? He was just like, I'm astonished. He said, if I quiet and try to do meditation, I sleep. But he said, I was not sleeping. I was wide awake, but I had not a single thought in my mind. And so to
Mm.
go with that, it's like, when you get in that state and the sound comes in and really works on the cellular level of your body, this is not where healing happens. Like, this is not where my singing
Yeah.
happens. This is not where music happens. It happens in a physical way, right? So I think about one doctor who came in and had really bad knee pain. And he left the sound bath and he said, I can't explain in any medical way what happened, but I don't have my knee pain anymore. And I mean, there's just so many situations like that, or where people are reminded of old memories or even memories beyond this lifetime. I had one situation where a woman came to me after and she said, "What's that bowl?" I was playing 20 different bowls, Krista, and she said, "What's that bowl?" And it happened to be lepidolite, which is a natural form of lithium, right? So it's we often use that like with bipolar or with great distress. She picked that bowl out and then she said to me, "My sister was murdered a year ago, and I have not been able to rest, to sleep, I just have not been able to get through it." She said something about that bowl just wrapped around me and made me feel so safe that I began crying in a way I've not cried. So what can
Wow.
I say to you about that? Was it the lepidolite? Was it the fact that it was a really low note and it was very grounding for her? What was the medicine for her? This is what I want to explore, but I think the bottom line is healing is a very personal journey,
Yes.
and as I said earlier, like whatever our deepest fate is or our soul's purpose, that's going to determine how we move with these kinds of things when we get ill or we have loss or we have a divorce or whatever the things that happen in our lives that really can throw us for a loop. How
Right.
do we heal? I mean, that's the bottom line question is how do we heal? When we get a wound and we watch that the scab, then, it makes a scab and then that begins to heal and then boom, there's no scar or anything. What is that? What is it about sound that puts that Band-Aid on us? And again, I could tell you so many situations of 3 different cancer patients who had mastectomies who said afterwards, "I don't know what happened, but my breast has returned." Each of them tried to put in their own words, but they said, and it was 3 different sound baths, and they said, "I'm whole again. I don't feel like there's a part of myself that's missing." So what happened to them energetically that because through that wholeness comes a sense of healing, comes a sense of, yes, I'm missing a part of myself. Yes, I had cancer, but look, I've been reborn. I'm whole. And I think for me, also back to your question about the book, like it's how can I communicate that? That when stuff happens in our
Yeah.
lives, we're not a victim for the rest of our lives to suffer.
You sound like you're an alchemist, like a lot of people that come here. So I think there was not going to be a situation where you weren't going to take an empowered and transformative approach to that experience or any experience you have. And I kind of love that about you and love that that was your life journey and that you're basically teaching people to do that. And like you said, healing is so individual. It's interesting to me to think about how sound will pierce what we've been hiding, for long times. It will find the wound and it will help us get it out. But I did want to offer you some space here. Like if you would do us the honor, whatever you feel called to play or do, I would love to have some of that on our show today.
I would love that. So this is a beautiful advanced set that you're going to feel. There's deeply grounding sounds, there's centering sounds, and there's expansive sounds. So I'm going to invite you to simply close your eyes if you can. I don't know where you're listening to the podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to sit back and close my eyes and you just do your thing.
And invite you to set an intention. Okay, so what is it that's up for each of us? What is the intention? I would like to release this. I would like to let go of the pain. I would like to bring more light in my life, more love, more acceptance, whatever it is. I invite you to set your intention now. And sound with intention can really bring transformation and healing. So I invite you to take some long, deep breaths. Bring your attention inward. Simply following where the sound takes you. Allowing yourself to feel the presence of love, the vibrational frequency of love. How does that feel in your body? Perhaps it's warm, tender, safe, kind, passionate. Feeling that vibrational frequency of love move and activate in every cell. Love is the vibrational frequency that transforms everything. Music, sound is love. Letting go, releasing those things that do not serve. Simply letting go. We are made of energy. We are sound vibration. We are light. Allowing peace, allowing love, transformation, healing. Feel the electric presence that you are. And then gently stroking your hands through your scalp, tenderly caressing your cheeks. And gently begin to tap your chest, your upper arms, your belly, your hips and your thighs. And when you're ready, stretching and perhaps yawning and opening your eyes and feeling that sense of sound having renewed and refreshed and replenished and regenerated you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. I forget too when you do sound, I don't know if this happens for everyone actually, but when I do sound baths, I see color with the different sounds.
Very
I saw
typical.
lots of like bright greens and like deep blues and purples and a couple sparks of yellow. It was really beautiful.
This is very typical that people, again, you go into that deep, deep brainwave state, and many people see shapes, sacred geometric shapes. They see colors. They connect with spirit, all kinds of things. That's very beautiful. It's really beautiful when that happens.
I always forget that. As soon as I close my eyes, it's just like a kaleidoscope of colors just start to match the sound. It's just so beautiful. And it's like it's moving with the sound. It's just so interesting. It's really, really beautiful. Thank you for doing that. Well, we're here at the end, so I want to give you some space to tell everybody where they can connect with you online, anything else you have coming up in the next few months over the summer. We've got the book that's coming out in July, but is there anything else you have going on?
Sure. So I had created an educational platform some years ago called the Sacred Science of Sound, and then also a healing space called Crystal Cadence. So both of these businesses are structures to house education. So the Sacred Science of Sound, I offer crystal singing bowl trainings and over 120 hours of training. So sometimes people would just want to have a little introduction class, which is 4 hours. And we really dive into just all the general things about sound, like what the average person might ask, and what's the science behind it?
Yeah.
What's the theory of music behind it? Well, what's the chakra system? And then how does that relate to the bowls? And then in level 1, 2, 3, and the advanced classes, we go quite deep into exploring your own instrument, you as a human being and your voice, and then exploring how you work with the bowls. As you get more advanced, you do case studies. So we've been collecting lots of, again, case studies and things that are happening with the bowls. So there's that. And then we have created an app, which should be released when this episode comes out, called Source. And Source meaning it is also an educational platform where I have there's 20 presenters on it, and it's all about science, just what we've been talking about: science, spirituality, and the healing power of music. And why is that important for each of us, and how does that affect our lives? There's a little meditation section for children. So the idea is that you could hear and learn about, let's say, cymatics. You could experience a 50-minute sound bath if you wanted to, and all this on the app Source. Once again, with the idea that at your fingertips, you have all kinds of healing tools, right? And what else? We have a members portal. So people that are interested in staying in regular touch, we have monthly meetings, Q&As, and I play monthly sound baths like this live, and the members are all around the world. There's a conversation each month with a guest that's someone in the field of sound and music medicine, and that's a nice way to stay in touch. What else? Our social media is Crystal Cadence LA is the Instagram, and I haven't done so much on TikTok yet, but and the Facebook also not so much, but the Instagram is really where I'm presenting a lot of the material. And as I shared earlier on the YouTube channel, there is, for example, 2-hour loops. So one of those loops, and they're free, and that was again the idea that people could have access to that kind of sound, cooking, studying, for falling asleep, etc. And one of them is a pentatonic scale, and one of them is a regular, like what I played now, is a C major chakra scale. So there's that. What else? Yeah, we're going to be traveling around with the book and presenting. So depending on what city you're in, we have a couple of big events in Los Angeles if you're in Los Angeles, and then we'll be traveling around the United States. That's being announced very soon. And I'm going to play at a big international symposium in Cambodia. If anyone's up for traveling that far, it's going to be at Angkor Wat. So it's going to be at a very sacred.
Oh, wow.
And I did this same symposium that was held in Australia in the Blue Mountains in 2017, I think. And I write a little bit about that in the book. So yeah, just stay in touch with us. You can join our mailing list and see all the things that are happening here. But as you can sense, I am fully committed to sharing sound and sound as a healing modality and a medicine for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll put the links into that there. And also you do sell the bowls as well, which you've got on your website.
Yes.
So if anyone sees anything, behind you that they like, they can go on and get that as well. So I noticed that earlier as well. I always wrap up in gratitude as well. And I just try to check in with my guests and see what 3 things they're sort of grateful for this week, this year, this month, anything that's rattling around in your heart chakra.
At this moment, I'm grateful for you. I'm very grateful that you do what you do and that you have such an open heart and mind and just sharing how you do that. I was very grateful for this experience of connection. In general, 3 things. I'm very grateful for this connection to God, to something bigger than myself that I know holds me steady and keeps me from holds me steady. I'm very grateful for my family and my friends, and I'm very, very grateful for the power of music. I don't know what life would be like for me without being able to sing, without being able to share these beautiful sounds. And in the other room, there's over 500 bowls, so I get very, very, very blessed, and I'm very grateful that I get to, play the alchemist and put different orchestras together for different situations, and just grateful for my life.
Yeah, beautiful. You pinged something that I was holding on to back there. You said at the top of the interview about like feeling like you've always had this connection to the divine. And I think something that's interesting about like your life journey in observing this conversation is it feels as though you never lost that connection. I think we all come into this world as fragments of God, and we, as children, it's very easy for us to stay tethered to that. But then like we get all this stuff plunked on us as in our human experience, and sometimes we lose it. And most everyone who comes on this podcast has found their way back to that. But I kind of love that you never lost that tether back to the divine, which is ultimately you, and you are the divine. So I wanted to just highlight that a little bit here as we wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. I think no matter what, there was that stabilizing force. There is that stabilizing force. Even when there were moments, there was one moment where I just thought, I can't go on anymore, God. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm done.
Yeah.
This is it. I can't live with this kind of grief, and I can't miss my son for the rest of my life. And I thought about getting a knife and ending it. And then I just began to pound and pound and pound my chest till I made myself black and blue. And I had enough sense to get on the phone and call my mom, who's really my closest, ally. It all started with her. And she knew exactly where I was. It was just like, God, I've lost all my faith right in that moment. And she just said to me, she knew where I was. She said, if you take your life, I'll kill you first. And it was just like, oh God, okay, God, I'm so sorry. I mean, I got it in that moment. It was just like, you can't go there. You just can't go there. So yeah, I do feel grateful that bigger presence has always just gone, trust. Just trust in that there is a bigger picture. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that will resonate with a lot of people. And again, I really appreciate your candidness. I think many of us walk up to the precipice of trying to make sense of this life and thinking maybe we shouldn't be here. And I think we have to destigmatize how difficult pain and tragedy can be on the human experience. It is incredibly taxing. It's not easy. And we have to have a lot of compassion for ourselves in those moments. I really appreciate you being honest about that. And we'll end it there. And I had such a lovely time meeting you. It was an honor having you on this show. And I love everything that you're doing. And I think your immeasurable contributions to the collective and the ripple effects that you are sending out are unbelievable. Like, I think you've done all the things and then some. And so I think we're very grateful as a species to you.
I told you I was grateful for you. Thank you so much.
This podcast was written, directed, and produced by me, your host, Krista Ziomata, in alignment with Light Casting. Music curated and created by Mr. Pixie. You can find I'm Awake Now What on all social media channels by searching IANW Podcast. Head over to your favorite podcast app and subscribe, download, rate, and review. Come back every Sunday to partake in a new and enlightening conversation. May you be filled with love and light until we meet again.